welcome to this seminar arranged by Nordicom in collaboration with Gothenburg, eller Göteborg International Film Festival about gender balance in the Nordic film industry. Gender balance and gender equality is about men and women having equal rights, opportunities and possibilities in society. The power to shape your own life, as we say in Sweden. But gender equality is also about freedom of expression, that everyone should have the right to speak and have a voice. It's a fundamental human right. My name is Maria Edström. I'm a research officer at Nordicom, managing a project called Nordic Gender Media Forum. You see the logo there. Nordicom is a small knowledge center about media and communication research. It's under the Nordic Council of Ministers and it's placed here at the University of Gothenburg. If you want to know more about Nordicom, we have some materials and books and things up for grabs down there. And we also have the report that we're going to talk about placed here in the auditorium. It can also be downloaded on the web. Yes, this year Nordicom is focusing on gender equality within the Nordic media industry in general. This seminar about film is the first one. We're also going to have other seminars about journalism, computer games and advertising. And we're very happy to be able to collaborate with the Göteborg International Film Festival, since this debate about gender equality in film has been an ongoing and very vivid debate here throughout the years. So for many of you, it's not the first, but maybe, I don't know, 10th or 15th seminar about this issue, and it's still are things to be discussed. And I also would like to thank the various film institutes for providing us with data, and also, of course, the Nordic Council of Ministers who made this possible. Well, I also would like to point out that there is another seminar at 3 o'clock with the Nordic Film Institutes where the discussion continues, I believe, in Scandinavian languages. And there is also a debate this evening at 8 o'clock in Swedish, if you want to further, talk about this. We have about 1 hour, and we will use it like this, that first we will present some of the data that is in the report. And then we will have some comments and input from Europe and also from industry people. Annika, you represent the industry and activists here today. I think we will start by just giving the word to myself, I realized. I forgot that I was supposed to say some things also. I thought I talked enough already, but I'll give you a little bit of the background then, very quick. This is an important document for Nordicom, why we're interested in this. It was, all the UN member states agreed in 1995 that women should have more access to the media and you should combat gender stereotypes. And this document was taken in 19 years ago. So it's almost 20 years ago, and you might wonder what have happened. And the fact is that you don't really know that much what happened because you're lacking information about that. So that's why we have this project about sharing knowledge and good practice. We believe that there are a lot of good practices within the Nordic region, but they're not very well known outside the Nordic countries. So we want to collect examples of where you actually managed to move forward. And we also like to see where do you have statistics and where don't you in these different fields of the media industry. So we're in seminars, we're having a conference, and we also, in the end, we'll do a publication on all this. And the data that you find today is like a first draft, you might say. We will continue to work with the film data, and the book will come out in December. Another important topic is also, of course, to understand that gender equality and sex aggregated data is not everything. You have an expression in research called gender plus, that gender never comes alone, that you have so many other power structures affecting your life. But I would also like to say that gender equality is one of the cornerstones of equality. And that's phrasing the Swedish statistics that says that in their little leaflet about statistics. They also have a number of them down there. And we're hoping that the next volume will include the media, because it's not included as of yet. We measure what we treasure. That is a saying, and that's what we would like to find out. What do we treasure in terms of the media? Is it only art, or is it about gender equality? And what we look at is, does it exist any disaggregated data by sex? And is it available? What is measured? Is it comparable? And what are the differences and similarities within the Nordic region? We tend to think that we're very much alike, but I think you all know that there are also a lot of differences. So by that, I think I give the word to my colleague Ulrika Facht, who is a media analyst at Nordicom.
Yes, I will give you quick glimpse of the data we have compiled. Of course, it's a huge task to compile data, especially for different countries, and try to make it as comparable or find similar data for different countries. So in the report, it's a selection of information on parts of the film industry, and we present data where we have at least 2 out of 5 Nordic countries. And we have the statistical bureaus in Finland and Sweden has provided us with information on employment in media. And this is a selection, so the top row is the total media, including publishing, advertising, audiovisual production and distribution. This is a bit hard to read on the screen, but the pattern is that for TV companies it's gender balance between men and women, while we can see that there are fewer women within production, post-production and distribution. And this data is based on full population collected from tax registers and business registers according to a European standard. So, and the media systems are of course different, but when it comes to gender, we are men or women or a third, but they count women and men. And probably when we see there's a more balance in the television companies where we have more editorial staff, and we can assume there are more technical positions within the production and distribution industry. So what does it look like regarding gender balance in the Nordic countries and the film industry? On some aspects, the film sector is, in comparison with other media, in the forefront on giving information on gender balance. The National Film Institutes collect and compile a lot of data, and we have made a representative collection from their available statistics. But there is a lot more information than we present, so anyone interested should look up the National Film Institutes. Looking at what is named key positions in film production, director, producer and scriptwriter. For Finland, the picture from 2010 to 2012 looks like this, and the top 3 lines are all male directors, producer, scriptwriter, and you have the share of females within these positions below. For Norway, we have information on 6 years, from 2007 to 2012, and it's a bit more blurred picture, but we have still the same pattern where there are more male or men directors, producers and scriptwriters than female. And for Sweden, we have information on different periods with different film agreements, where we can actually see that during the period from 2006 and 2012, where even more the gender issue has been emphasized in the agreements, with different supports, that the share of females in the film production on this key position has increased. And to make a quite long story short, does funding of film works? That's an instrument the Film Institute, the film funds, and the government has to emphasize on this issue. And judging from data from Norway and Sweden, the funding is an instrument or tool for at least there are more female directors, producers, and scriptwriters than as if you count on all film premieres during a year. And bear in mind that that there are a limited number of films released in each country, Nordic country, per year, while each and every person make a difference when you calculate on shares. And if you want a full comparability, sometimes the best way is to do the work yourself. And with that, I will leave the floor to Therese Martinsson.
Can I just make a short introduction of Therese? Therese is a bachelor student from the University of Gothenburg that we asked her if she would be interested to have so we could have a glimpse at the output, so to speak, what happens on the screen. So we're very happy that you started this work here for us. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, as Maria said, I'm a student at the bachelor program in cultural studies in Gothenburg. I'm about to write my thesis, and I will base it on some statistics, which I will explain to you. I will, in my thesis, combine both the content and the key functions, and I count in gender shares. So what I include is the lead parts, is supposed to say, the lead parts. And to make a comparative analysis of content, I have chosen to use the 2 highest listed characters in every cast for every film in the Nordic countries, all films premiered in 2012. So the 2 highest listed characters, I have chosen to make it fair and to make it comparable. I only use fiction features. And the second thing is the key functions, which is director, producer, and scriptwriter. And I assume this is familiar to most of you, that we call that the key functions. It's the people who have the artistic, they make the artistic functions in the film. And is responsible for how the story is told. So, I'm counting gender shares, which means that if a film has 2 women as leading characters, the share is 1 for women and 0 for males. And for key functions, it depends on how many on each position. So the most common is for a film to have 1 director, and if the director is male, it's 1 for male and 0 for females. If it seems foggy to you, I will show you. This is all the films produced in 2012. And if you look at Iceland, it's quite easy to look at Iceland because it's only 4 films from Iceland. So what you can see is that in lead parts, there's half a share female, 3.5 male. For director, we have 1 share female director, and 3 male. Producer, yeah, you can see I count in shares. And then I recounted it to percent. It might sound a bit confusing, but I think you will get it when I show the rest of the statistics. I hope so. I've done a comparison in all the films that have a male lead character, all male lead character, and male key positions to see who is telling stories about who. And here we can see that it's quite more men telling stories about men than women telling stories about women. It's quite a big difference.
One question, is the red the men or?
Yeah, the red is for men. So if you see male director and male lead, that means In the Nordic countries, 36.7% of all films have a male director to a film with a male lead character, which is quite eating up the female part, because it's only 2 films with female directors telling stories about female lead characters. I will take this quite quickly, just to give you a grip, and then in March you can read my thesis. But the most striking fact that we found, or that I found in these statistics, is when we chose to investigate how common it is with films made by only men, that means men in all key functions, and only men in the lead characters. And what we found is this. This is how many films in every country and in all countries that has both male scriptwriter, the red is that has both male scriptwriter, producer, and director telling a story, making a film with 2 lead characters that are male. These are all male, and this is the female share. This is how many films we had in the Nordic countries with female key positions and female lead characters. Yeah, that's an introduction to what my thesis will be about, very quickly drawn for you. So, by that...
Okay, thank you very much. There's a lot of more analysis to be done to this,
yeah,
I guess.
Very, very, very short.
But it's, I still think, even though there's a lot of staples here, you might be able to see that there are some patterns of male dominance, you might say. But I wonder, just a short question to Annika Hellström. You're from Dorisfilm, but you're also a producer working in the Nordic region. Does this resemble what you have, what your idea of the industry is, or?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, of course, there could be more numbers, like female producer with male director, or, you know, to expand it. But I think it comes out of a structure that that is in the society, where we can mostly consider the male character to be more interesting, to have a developing, well, to be the developing character. Also, but I would like to say that, for example, The Bridge, that's been highly rewarded internationally, and I think it's a lot about. It has to. It's well done. It's well written, but it's also a new character that we're not used to see anywhere, and that is what is. I think the average people out on the street are ready for new characters.
We'll come back to what you can, how Doris is working with these issues as an example. But now I would like to give the floor to our guest from outside the Nordic countries. We wanted to have a look from another point of view, and this is Francine Raveney, coming from, she's a director of the European Audiovisual Women's Network. And like, what do you do? Just your short comments on this while I pick up your slides.
I mean, one of the shocking things for the pan-European situation is that you can't actually do a study like this and show these figures, because for many countries there's been absolutely no data monitoring whatsoever. So when you're looking at the whole of the pan-European question, it's much more complicated to show this information because you don't have the basic data. I mean, some countries don't actually monitor the number of films which are produced in the country every year, so it's quite a challenging to produce the statistics. And there's such a great variation from one European country to the next as well. You know, it's a lot of work to be done to be able to say, well, actually, in the rest of Europe, it looks like this. So a lot of work to be done.
So we can't say that the Nordic countries are the best or the worst. We don't know.
The Nordic countries look pretty good from the statistics, in the sense that they've had this, especially in Sweden, you've had a government policy which has been promoting gender equality for such a long time. So, I mean, that does make a difference, and that clearly has filtered down, as Dorisfilm will explain as well later. In other countries where there have been no policy whatsoever, in some cases, you can still see a lot of female filmmakers, a lot of strong female roles. I always mention Turkey as an interesting example, because it's a country where you have a lot of female filmmakers in the industry, with no specific policy to promote those female filmmakers. And then you can look to other countries like Austria or Germany, where the situation is a little bit more complex, and the figures might be even worse, I think.
Okay, since we gather that a lot of people maybe not are so familiar with the work, you have some slides to talk about EWA's.
Yeah, so I was going to begin by just introducing what the European Women's Audiovisual Network actually is, and then I'll talk about the type of work that we're doing in the research field.
And you can sit down if you like, because you said
okay.
no, you're fine.
I'm fine. It's easier to see the slides from up here. So firstly, the European Women's Audiovisual Network was initially set forth at a huge conference of female filmmakers in Santiago de Compostela in 2010. And all of these female filmmakers came together and said, we need a European network to support us. And then I came on board in 2010, in November. And from my coming on board, we set up the association as a non-profit organisation, actually in Strasbourg, so that we were close to all of the political organisations and funds like Eurimage and the European Audiovisual Observatory. In the past year, we now have 200 members from 14 countries. You can see the countries here. And we have financial backing from, well, firstly, I'll say a very big thank you to the Swedish Film Institute for supporting us, because without their help and their belief in the project, it wouldn't have taken off as it has. And also from the Norwegian Film Institute, the Dutch Film Fund, and ICA in Spain. We've also had in-kind support from the Croatian Audiovisual Centre and the Hungarian Cultural Centre of Berlin. The three main objectives of the EWA network: well, firstly, it's to promote greater gender equality for audiovisual creatives. We're talking about creatives primarily to start with as the director, the producer, and the scriptwriter. The second goal is to promote gender mainstreaming for all technical and other roles throughout the sectors of film firstly, but then later video games and online media. And then thirdly, where possible, to devise initiatives and opportunities for reflection, such as pilot projects, to consider the issue of representations of women from all cultural and ethnic backgrounds in audiovisual content. So we have a number of partners you can see here already. I'll let you look at the list. And our president is a Spanish director, Isabel Couchet, who I think some of you will be familiar with already. Her work is absolutely excellent. And I'm going to go down to her recommendations for young female directors specifically in the industry. She says, be stubborn, be patient, be wild, be free, be safe, but don't play safe. Believe in yourself, believe your point of view is as valid as that of any other director. Listen, learn, never think you've made it, always be dissatisfied. Don't take yourself too seriously, but seriously enough. So Isabel Couchet is a very strong supporter, of course, of the network's values, and as a director, she really feels that she's suffered in the industry because of her gender. You have here the EWA team. We're all volunteers, and the names in red are all dealing with research. So myself, Sheila Rowan-Legg is a Canadian researcher based in London, Carrie McAllinden, and Turkul, who I think is in the audience here. Yeah. So we're all working together to work on the research aspect, but also on other areas of work. This is our executive bureau, the decision-making body. We're delighted that Zeynep Özbatu Atakan, that's Nuri Bilge Ceylan's producer, came on board recently as a vice president as well. Again, this is our advisory board, and the names in red are all the research specialists. And one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about EWA today is its advantages for professionals in the industry who believe in gender equality. It's about generating visibility of work as well. When I started out the project, I found out from one of the culture editors of a big UK paper that the subject wasn't a subject because there were no female directors in Europe anyway. So, of course, visibility is a very important factor. And so, as a member, we're always promoting our members' work and making sure we support them and help them throughout the industry. We work in 4 main axes, so bridge building and networking. And if you are at the Berlinale, we're having a big event on the 9th of February at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And there'll be a political roundtable. And Anna Serna, I don't know if she's in the audience now, but Anna Serna will be speaking as well. And that will be followed by a networking reception. So I would recommend, if you're interested, to come along to that event. We also work in the field of research, which I'll speak about now, training, we organise ad hoc training courses, and also advocacy. So that's trying to bring about change at pan-European level, working with MEPs, the European Union, and at national level as well. And we organise a number of pilot projects. So why research? Why would research matter for a European women's network? Well, the first thing is there is no data that's complete. There is a totally fragmented approach from one country to the next. So for some countries, it's very difficult to say, well, these are the statistics. They've never even started counting at all. There's no database with all of the information. And in terms of research of causes of gender imbalance, basically there's no pan-European research being carried out. So we felt that there was a huge need to have a more harmonized approach to this factor. Firstly, by doing a big awareness-raising campaign with all of the film funds in Europe to start doing data monitoring, and that's going very well at the moment. Then we've brought together a research team of experts to actually map out the current situation. But how do you map out a situation where you have 36 countries, many of which haven't even started to do data monitoring? So what we thought to do was to begin by doing a pilot study of just 4 European countries, and kind of compare and contrast, so that at the end of it we can show statistics like Maria's been able to show from Nordicom for those 4 countries. So we've chosen Sweden, the UK, Croatia, and Germany to compare and contrast information. And we're looking at questions like information on film school data. Is there any monitoring in your film school? What's happening in the film school as far as gender balance is concerned for the creative roles? Secondly, what data monitoring and research is carried out by your film fund? What relevant reports are being carried out by other national bodies and organisations? And what are the main areas of national interest pertaining to gender equality and observations for the future? So for the 4 countries, we have connections to the film funds. So for Sweden, as I've already mentioned, we're working closely with the Swedish Film Institute. In Croatia, we're working closely with the Croatian Audiovisual Centre. In the UK with BFI Skillset and Global Policy Institute, and in Germany with the FFR. So that's a work in progress. We're also going to be hosting a research workshop during the Berlin Film Festival, having a real brainstorming on the mapping out of the pilot study, because we want to deliver it at 2015 Berlin Film Festival. We've also been working closely with Euromage and the European Audiovisual Observatory. And great news from the European Audiovisual Observatory, because for the first time they're going to release a huge research report on statistics at pan-European level to do with box office success, and they'll release that at a big conference during the Cannes Film Festival. And Euromage has also got new research. And our long-term goal for research is now to fundraise this year so that from 2015 to 2020 we can have a think tank at pan-European level and working alongside partners like Nordicom as well to be able to answer for other areas and countries that need new research on data monitoring or research on gender issues that are important. We're also lobbying very hard at the moment. EWA needs 2 things at the moment. We're looking for country ambassadors. We have them in a number of countries, but not yet so far for the Nordic countries, although I think Dorisfilm will come on board, which is fantastic. And as a country ambassador, you're basically representing EWA in your own country, hosting events, etc. And of course, we always need financial support to grow the project. If you want to find out more, you can have a look at our website, ewawomen.com, our Facebook page, and then we also have social networking channels. And of course, write to us if you're interested in finding out more. And I would be thrilled to meet you at the event on the 9th of February in Berlin. Thank you very much.
So that was a little promo section here for EWA. But what would you say your impact has been these few years that you've been working?
Well, I've been working on the EWA project for 14 months exactly. And I would say the main clear aspect of impact has been the change in policy, I would say, with the Euromage Film Fund, the European Audiovisual Observatory, and then I was invited to a meeting in Vienna to meet all of the different Euromage representatives working from film funds as well. And there's been a huge awareness-raising lobby, if you like, that's mean that many countries that never even thought about the importance of gender equality have actually started to think about it and started to bring about change. 2 countries come to mind straight away. So Germany and Austria are really committed to bringing about change in their countries as well. So it's been important to raise awareness and actually even to put the topic on the table, because some countries didn't even think of it as an issue. I mean, I think in Sweden you have a long history of working in, gender policy and gender equality, but that's not the case throughout Europe. In some countries it's not even an issue. So that's one of the main things that we've achieved, and also creating kind of a big family across Europe, so that there's a huge support network there.
Do you think that you will actually be able to change, or increase the diversity in screenings and stuff? Is that also your goal?
Screenings is the next step. So we're working with the UNIC in. Screenings is a difficult one. We're working with UNIC based in Brussels. We'll be invited to a round table event at a very traditionally, I would say, not pro-gender equality conference next year, Cine Expo. And that will be a good opportunity to talk about that and put it on the table. So that's the other thing is that now with new distribution methods, it's not just traditional distribution. That's the way of sharing information for, sharing your films. So using online distribution strategically is another manner of making sure that you can change screenings that way as well. And we do have a training course in Istanbul in April specifically on that as well, on online distribution strategies.
Okay, thank you, Francine,
for
the
Maria.
moment. And now I would like to give the floor to Doris, because I know we have in the audience people who might not know about Doris. I think here in Gothenburg, most people are quite familiar with the can I say activist group, or even though you're a producer, that's not why you're here today. But you could say something if you would like to make some promo about your work as well, while I put up the slide.
Well, shortly I can say I became a producer while working with Doris, and in 2006 I set up my own company, Film, and last year I also set up 2A Film together with Annika Hellström Olsson. And so, how to Doris? Doris is a network and a board. We were organized as a board in 2003. Before that, we started as a network of film workers in Gothenburg. And the board work is voluntarily, and we continuously raise funding for specific projects. And they've been varied from the beginning. It was 9 shorts that we wanted. I should take it in the right way. What is on Doris' mind is to equate women and men is a fundamental right. And images makes a lot of impact on our daily life and how we conceive the society we live in. And so 2003, we thought we wanted to move on from a theoretical discussion out to make films. Films is a practical handcraft, and we wanted to see if there will be any difference in them. So we out of the manifest, we wanted to make 9 short films, and then we thought, well, then we have some material that we could discuss from, that we could see what is the quality. Is it worse quality than the men, or is it better, or is there different stories? And so, in a way, what you've been talking about here before, we thought it was important that all scripts should be written by a woman, or all scripts should have a female main character to see what it will end up with. All creative leading positions should be held by women, and original music should be composed by women. When we set up the Doris Manifesto, we had the idea of making the 9 short films, and the second part that we wanted to do was to reach out to make tutorials for the films and to reach out to, this is like pedagogues, the teachers, not to only reach to an already adultery audience, but also to awaken awareness by the younger one that it's important to talk also about female literature or female filmmakers, even as in a young early stage. So the short films that were done between 2004 and 2008 is the films that you've seen here. They were all combined into what we call the Doris feature. I can say that when we announced, we had 3 script competitions yearly, and when we announced the first script competition, we put a deadline 2.5 months later, which wasn't really very well thought out. I mean, it's a very short time to get some scripts in. And when we went to the post office, and the script competition and all the Doris films has been nationwide, we received 411 scripts in 2.5 months. And that's when we really went from, I mean, as a network, we're always, I mean, you question yourself, well, is there every one person, or do they care about this? Or, I mean, do people really want new stories? But that's when we thought, well, they are ready for that. And so the shorts were, they've been screened here in Sweden, but they've also been traveling around really all over the world. And the Doris feature, which has all the films, had its world premiere at Toronto Film Festival 2010. We also had a third goal with the Doris film, and that was that we will go international. Both, I mean, we have one aim, and that is we would love other countries to adopt the Doris Manifesto, because we have our experience and they could gain from that. I mean, it's the fact how it affects a country and how it affects the industry, because a lot of times it's about if you're asking for a female sound engineer or a grip or a DOP, you know, then something happens. If you don't ask for it, you just go on and you do as you've been doing all the time before. So why work for gender equality? Well, gender is essential for the power of knowledge, beliefs, prejudices, and attitudes. Well, both women and men are taking place in gender system, and both men and women try to keep it. That's by just repeating what we're all a part of. Both women and men produce and consume inequality in many ways. This is statistics from the Swedish Film Institute, but which for us gives a little bit of an impact of how important the image is, how much part it takes in our daily life, and that's, I think, like for everyone, it's the main reason why it's so important that it should be men and women who are giving us these images. And this is also from the Swedish Film Institute. So who makes the decisions and with what agenda? I think it goes down to that. The economic structures, I mean, this is also something which I think, I mean, if you dream what the image could have an impact on, because depending on what stories we get, women own 1% of the total world assets and receive 10% of all income. I think a lot of it has to do, as it has been, if you see men who are the decisions makers or who are in the top role, then you tell little girls that this is not a part of you in the society. So this is 2008. We got funding from the region west, well, our region here. I don't know the name in English. And we could write tutorials for the films, and we toured in the region and gave lectures to over 400 teachers who watched the films, discussed gender, and listened to lectures on the gender thesis. With us on this tour was also Gertrud Åström, who is, I think, the leading gender expert in Sweden. And she also she had like, for example, Francis, what you were talking about, I think a lot of why it came so far in Sweden has a lot to do with the Swedish history of gender equality. And so she, as a gender aspect, she put it in a social context. Another part of, since what we said before, that both men and women are keeping up the system, I think sometimes it's important for women to question themselves if they are repeating the system. And like, I don't know how to say this in English. Anyway, but one thing that Doris wanted to do, that we wanted since 2009, we wanted to promote another woman. It's important for one woman to tell another woman, you're a genius. Because a lot of times we are used to that it's men who are the genius. So this has, this has been a successful award. And 2011 we reached out international, and that is by, we have something called the Doris Platform Day, where we speak about the Doris work, we speak about the films, the process and the tutorials, and we've been supported from the Swedish Institute. Gertrud Åström has also been a part of in these lectures, and we've been in St. Petersburg, Brussels, Kaliningrad, St. Petersburg, Belgrade again, and we will also attend June in Malmö, the Nordic Forum in Malmö, which is a continuation of the Beijing 95 women rights. And it's Gertrud Åström and the Swedish female lobby who is behind that. And there you can see a bit more on that. Yeah, here's some of the Doris films. Doris. So.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess from the point of view of Nordicom, Doris is also one of those good practices that we like to collect from the Nordic countries. And I say to you in the audience, if you have examples of good practice from the Nordic countries, please bring them forward, because we're kind of going through all the countries looking at what is being done on a more structural level in the civil society and in education. Some of you mentioned the role of the film schools. That is, of course, very important as well. And there was a seminar this Sunday, the importance of the distributors, that don't seem to, the major distributors in Sweden are not so interested in gender equality, it seems, in those interviews that have been made in the report by WIFT here in Sweden. I thought I opened the floor for some questions, and I wonder if we could use one of the mics to go around in the audience. How does that work? Someone is nodding. Good. Because I think we have a well-qualified audience here to also ask questions. But maybe just starting off by the statistics again, because statistics might be boring, but they're very interesting also in the sense that you have like a common ground to discuss. What about the similarities and differences? If Ulrika, could you say like what were the most stunning differences between the Nordic countries?
Well, for once, the similarities is that there's an aim within the Nordic countries to work on these questions. Particularly, Norway and Sweden has published several reports on gender balance in the film industry, and why and where and how. And then of course, the size of the countries also comes in as a sort of bias. Iceland is a small country, and taking into relation the size of the population and the number of films they produce, of course, it's quite a lot. But when you count shares on these matters, it's another thing, and they don't have these the same data collection as the national film institutes or film funds are able to.
But would you dare to point out if one country is better than the other?
No.
You have to read for yourself.
Yes, and you can count from what countries we have information. So to speak.
That's a clue. And Therese, could you say something about the content that you analyzed, or not the content, but the leading part? What would you say were the big differences, like in general? Could you point out one country that seemed to succeeded better in terms of numbers?
For the lead parts?
Yes.
I thought they were quite similar, actually. I was mostly surprised that still, as I said, men tell stories about men, and that men also tell stories about women, and that it's such a small share of women speaking up and telling stories about women. I think it's a strange bias.
If I remember correctly, there was only one of the 98 films that women...
Yes, of course. We have to congratulate Finland for making one movie with in 2012 where there were all women on the key functions. It's a film called Stars Above. I can't say it in Finnish.
It was screened here at the festival last year.
Okay.
Very good.
And it's a story about... actually, it has 3 lead parts. It's a story about 3 women living in the same house, but in different generations, exactly. So that was the one film with both female scriptwriter, producer, and director, and females in the lead parts.
The only one in the
Nordic
Nordic
one
countries.
in 2012. Yeah.
Out of 98 films. Yes. So the floor is open for questions. You have a mic there? And we just wait long enough so someone will ask a question. Anna. And I think most people know you, Anna Sanna, but you could still, if you state your name before speaking, it's good. And where you come from.
Hello, I'm Anna Sörner. I'm the head of the Swedish Film Institute. This is not a question. Well, it is somewhat a question, because you said that the films that you were measuring were produced in 2012, right?
Yeah, they had a premiere at cinemas in 2012.
Exactly, because that's really important. The premiere year, and you were comparing it for how much state funding can actually make a difference. And in that sense, it's really important to realize that funding is between 1 and 3 years, maybe, for long feature film before the premiere. So, and that is actually more or less what I want to emphasize, is that taking 1 year like you do now, which is makes things clear, and what you aim to demonstrate is that there is no gender equality, and you made your point clear. But in other senses, it gets really not a fair view of how things develop. I think that we really need to talk about longer terms of years. For instance, the Finnish film that was produced 2012, the only one in Nordic countries, was following the Swedish film by Lisa Skan, The She-Monkeys, Apflickorna, produced by a female director, and it was 2 female leading parts. So if you are too much ad hoc or too much in here and now for 1 year, when we have like 15 films a year, it doesn't get very, it's not the truth. And just to bear that in mind, that we need to talk about longer terms to be able to see things developing and to be able to compare. And that's my only... But then, besides that, your point is true. There is no gender equality.
There are always many perspectives, but I think, Ulrika, you bring that perspective with the over time as well.
Yes, in the report we try to present where there are time series. We try to present them.
I think the output that we asked Darius to do this we were lacking because it's not reported that much about the output, and people always wonder, is it a difference? If there's men and women, does it matter? And it's like you don't know if it matters. So this was just to make like a short glimpse of maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. And then I totally agree that you need time series. And I think for the book that we're producing, maybe we could also add on at least another year, like the more years. And you can see from the Film Institute that now you have data from all the year 2000 and onwards, and you will see the progress, I think. And you see it in the industry part, but we're still lacking the transparency of data about the films that have been premiered.
Yeah, and I have to emphasize from my view that I would, of course, like to make a much bigger analyze with more context, but it's, since from my view I have to write a bachelor thesis, I have 8 weeks to do it, so for me it's much about time and space, but I'm happy that you brought out the point, because there are many other points about making a content analysis and who tells stories about who, so it's very important that we bring up these points to remember that there's always one more way to look at things. So thank you very much for bringing that up.
But to complement that thing, I think also that you could see that from the starting point of the Film Institute taking this as an important issue of gender equality is maybe now that you see the fruit of that work, so to speak, and since now we're starting collecting data in time series, maybe you will see how that has affected the Nordic film industry or not. That is for the future to tell. Yes.
Hello. My name is Jutta Sarhima. I'm a freelance film journalist from Finland. I just wanted to kind of point out or ask if you have any data on projects made by women in key roles that enter like the initial scriptwriting funding phase, and which projects actually make out in the end, because you get your initial funding for screenwriting, and then you go back and forth with the institute and kind of get more funding, and then you go to the next phase, and sort of getting data out of this sort of development is really interesting. I think some female directors in Finland that I've talked with have raised this point out, that saying that many screenplays made by women kind of get lost in the process, or this is how they kind of guess this is something that quite often happens, but we don't really have a data on this. So do you have anything relating this? Thank you.
The data I have received is just on applications and decisions, and I don't have any information on, so to speak, dropouts. But that's the information I have so far.
But that might be the data that exists, right? Yes. Who's someone from the Swedish Film Institute, I think, yes?
Yeah, my name is Tove Torbjörnsson. I work at the Swedish Film. And I also think it's very important to make this difference between production support and premiere. I think it's much more interesting. And also that you can maybe somehow have something about following the money, because film is not only feature-length films. I mean, there's shorts and documentaries, if you can comment on that somehow. And also one other thing is Eat, Sleep, Die. Wasn't it premiered 2012?
Yeah, one part is, of the lead parts, one is female and one is male. So it fell on one small.
Okay. Okay.
Hello, my name is Sofie Björklund and I'm working at Film Invest. It's a public regional film fund here. And I'm working with short film, and I work with young filmmakers and the new generation of filmmakers. And I think it's important also to stress, when you're talking about time periods, it's also important to talk about how this work that SFE is doing, how that affects in a longer term. That you can't just say, okay, the one who's now making their debut in the feature film today or yesterday and so on. Because what I can really notice, and I have followed this since 2002-04, and what I could see in the younger film generation that applied for this money for young filmmakers, there was just almost men and guys, and how now it's really turning over. So what I can see with the application that reaches me is that I have almost the opposite problem. It's like 90% women that are and both producing, directing, script writing, and lead roles. So I think you have to be patient to see where the effect comes out. And for the younger generation, I think this work at SFE is playing a huge role for how they look at their opportunities in the future. So I think you should also take that in perspective when you're judging the result of the works being done.
I think since we're looking at film, journalism, computer games and advertising, I think one of the main results will be the importance of the film institutes, actually, that you have the kind of infrastructure that kind of works on a more strategic level and also produce both like projects like the Rookie Project and things like that to kind of speed things up, and also regional funds, the work that they are doing, because you can't find that kind of structure in the other parts of the media industry. So we will see in the end how the different areas comes out, but I think that the Film Institute plays a major role here, and it has been very important. What do you say, Ulrika? It's like...
Yes, I agree. And for once, collecting information on media is time-consuming, but on adding gender balance is even more time-consuming. So, please fund.
Okay, it's time out almost. Or do we have time? Another question? Yes.
Yes. My name is Gunilla Ivarsson, and I want to raise another perspective, so to say. I'm active in an organization called International Association for Women in Radio and Television. And I think we are in our organization working mainly outside Europe, where radio has maybe a stronger position than in Europe. But we find it's important to work also with the radio. And I heard you mentioned the EWA Network. You promoted yourself as an audiovisual organization. And I also know that Dorisfilm from the beginning had some cooperation with the radio theater here in Gothenburg. So I just wonder if you want to say something about working together also with the radio.
Well, from EWA's perspective, absolutely. Basically, because we've just been starting out, we have such a huge remit in such a huge number of countries. We had to be a bit strategic with the resources that we have. So we decided in the first year to concentrate primarily on film, and then to open into the other areas with our future roadmap. So absolutely, that's an area we need to look into. There's actually a UK-based network as well. I think it's called Sound Women, that are doing a lot of work in this area as well. And our idea is to partner with Sound Women in the future, precisely to try and look into this area as well.
Yeah, I can tell from Doris that I think it was 2005, I don't know if the radio channel here launched a competition in the same way, based on the same principles as the Doris Manifesto, a competition for radio plays. And they, I think they broadcasted 5 radio plays which had a female director. And I think that's an excellent idea, to get new scripts and have female directors and new stories in radio. So, I mean, it's a great manifesto to adopt. If any, it's a good idea. I think that's the way how it can cope in radio.
Is there a last question, and then time's out, I think. Yeah.
It's not really a question, it's more a comment. My name is Karin Ekberg. I work at Filmbasen, which is, I can comment or continue on what Sophie said from Film Invest. I'm also a director myself, so I've experienced some of these things. I think a big problem in Sweden, I don't know about the other countries, but that's the trend of age limits for projects for development, that the general idea from the financials from, not from the film industry, but from cultural politics or youth politics, so those kind of people, that development is something that you do early. It's connected with being young, not with early on in a project. And this becomes counterproductive for women even more than for men, because what we see with our applications is the same as what Sophie said. Generally, guys apply at the earlier stage. It's less prepared, shorter CVs, less education. Women study longer, prepare the applications longer, wait longer, come prepared to the top, and then often they start making their bigger projects just before 30, and then they hit the 30 limit, which is almost everywhere. And last year I counted there were 3 new scholarships / projects that came new that had this age limit again. And 30 is the age when a lot of women start thinking about children, so they hit 2 roofs in a way. And we have a project now called Pure Fiction with 6 directors. They're all between 30 and 40, and this is financed by the Swedish Film Institute. And when we wrote this application, we forgot to put in an age thing, just to try if it worked, and it worked. There are 6 places, we had 70 applications, and in all these applications, the same story came. I studied long, I worked on film shoots. There were all the guys doing all the technical stuff. They had the cameras first in school, blah, blah, blah. When I finally realized I wanted to do this, I couldn't apply for talent money. I wanted to have a family. Whoops, now I'm 37. What can I do? And considered to not be talented for not having had your debut. And there is a knowledge gap with the people that give the money, because what I read, the average debut age is 38. So this 30 limit, I think we all have to help each other to... I've been so sad when I saw 3 new possibilities coming last year with the 30 limit.
I think I have to thank you there because our time is out. And I'll just thank you for participating. And please continue to join our discussion about the good practices and the